Hi, it's Jordantine1, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this really sweet little marshmallow bunny peep. So I've done 3 different colors here. I have the turquoise, the pink, and the purple, and the stitching that's holding them together is actually a little bit different. So I will talk about that a little bit more during the stitching part of the tutorial, but I can just very briefly tell you that these two are done the same, only they're opposite. I use this way as the front on this one, and this way is the back on this one. And then the last way is the purple one, and you can see that's more flat on the sides. So I'm going to show you how to do all 3, but eventually I'm going to end up doing this one. So I think it's a super sweet gift item that you can add to any Easter basket, or you can just make them for decorations around your house. And I did make an Easter basket. Actually, I have a few different ones on my channel, but it's actually the perfect size to stick into your basket, or if you wanted to, you could get a couple stuffed in there. And I think the 2 items really complement each other. To make your bunny, you're going to need a hook of some sort. So I have the Rainbow Loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have on hand. I'm going to be using just a small amount of polyfil for the stuffing, so that is optional. You can probably get away without using any, but I like the look of it with just a little bit of fluff inside for the face and the belly. You're going to need several clips, and then I also am going to be using some stitch markers. You can find these at your local craft store, and they are very helpful for holding the stitches together to keep them in line when you need to stitch the 2 pieces together. I have some beads for the eyes and a seed bead for the nose. So the beads that I'm using for the eyes are approximately 2 millimeters, and then the one for the nose is approximately 4 millimeters in length. And then as far as your bands, you're only going to need 1 solid color, so I'm using pink, and you're going to need about 276 of those. I'm going to begin by making a magic ring of 5, so for that I have 6 rubber bands. So if you are using the twist tie, you just want to put it right next to your hook, and if not, you'll just use your plain hook. You're going to take your first band and you want to triple this, so it goes on, twist, back on, twist, and then back on one more time. You're going to pull your twist tie up about halfway, bend that in half, and what that's doing is just holding those 3 loops together, and it's just giving you something to grab onto. So if you didn't have the twist tie, you would just use your fingers to grab the 3 loops each time. So you're taking your next band, you're going to pull through the 3 loops, back on your hook, you'll have 2 loops, and then you're going to pull one through the other. And then from the front, you're going to push back through those 3 loops, pull through your second band, get it back on your hook. This time you're going to have 3 loops, and then every other time the same. Pull one through the other 2, back through, pull through your third band, fourth, here's my last one. I'm going to take my twist tie and remove it, take my clip, and I'm going to put this on the band that's on my hook. So you can use a clip or a stitch marker, and that's just letting you know where the end of your row is, because it is helpful to know that. And then you're going to just take these bands and try and just spread them out so they're evenly spaced around the circle. So at the end of this, you're going to have 5 stitches, and a stitch is this little sideways V that's on the outer edge of your magic ring. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one, or whatever the last one in your row is always going to be the one that's around your hook with the clip on it. In row 2, you're going to need a total of 10 bands, and we're doing an increase in every stitch. So I have my bands laid out in piles of 2, and you can see we are going to add the eyes. So you can either do this during the looming process, which is what I'm going to show, or you can just add them after the fact and just tack them on. So I have used a needle and thread to thread my beads, and the eyes are going to go on the 6th band and again on the 8th band. So I'm going to go under my first stitch, pushing from front to back, take my first rubber band, it's going to pull through, back on, you'll have your 3 loops, one through the other 2. Then I'm going back through that very same stitch, taking my second band, it goes through, back on, one through the other 2. So that's what's considered an increase. We're doing that in every stitch. So here's my second stitch, pulling through the first one, back through for the second, and then in my third stitch I'm going to attach the eye. So there's one, and then on the second one, which is actually the 6th band in our row, I'm just going to pull through, get the other end, and one through the other 2. So you can see now that there is the eye nice and tight on there. And the next stitch, we're doing a plain band first, and then back through for your second eye. Then you should have 1 stitch left, and we're doing our very last increase. It's going to be right where your clip is. Take your clip, just move it around, and then your stitch count for this row should be 10. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and number 10 is on your hook. In row 3, you're going to need 16 bands. We're doing a pattern of 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. But then in the very last stitch here, you can see it's just a single. So we're doing an increase to start. So that's 1, and then back through the same stitch. It's an increase in the second. And then for the third, it's just a single. So we're just going to repeat that pattern, because we do definitely want this to still widen out. So it's an increase, and then a second increase, and then a single, and then we are going to repeat that one more time. So here is our single, and then you can see after we've done that pattern 3 times we have just 1 stitch left. So I am just going to do a single in that. Again, I'm going to move my clip. Just going to kind of try and flatten this out. And then at the end of this row, we've increased our stitch count to 16. Now before we go any further, I'm going to show you how to attach the nose. And the reason that I am doing this separately is that if we try to do it within the row, instead of being straight across, it would be more on a slant. So what we're going to do is to basically position it right around the magic ring, straight across there. So I'm going to go to the right side, and from the back I'm going to push up through, take 1/2 of this band and pull through to the back. Then on the left side I'm going to push out, grab the other half, pull that through to the back. So you can play around with the positioning of where you think you want it. So you're going to have these 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to take your last band, you're going to pull through both, get the other end back on your hook, and then pull one through the other, make a nice and tight slip knot. So you don't really have to do anything with that, but if you wanted to just kind of get it to go underneath a couple loops just so it's not sticking straight out and in your way, you can just do that. In row 4, you're going to need 5 bands, and the pattern we're going to do is 2, 1, 2. So we're only going to work our way around the circle just a little bit here. This is going to be, I guess you would consider this about the neck area. So we're only just doing a little bit around the circle. So we have an increase, a single, and then another increase. And so I can remove this clip, and I'll place it on the band that's on my hook. In row 5, we're going to do a pattern of 1, 2, 2, 1, and we're going to be working our way back across the body. So we ended over here on the left, so what we're going to do is flip this around. So now your hook should be on the right, and we're going to work our way across again. But since we flipped this around and we had been going in from this side, we want to continue to go in through the same side, so that means now we're pushing back to front. So you can see that you have this stitch where your band is coming up through, and what you're going to do is from the back side here, you're going to push through that same stitch, go under both loops, pull through your first band, get it back on your hook, and one through the other 2. Over to the next stitch, we're doing an increase in this one. Again, back to front. It may feel a little bit awkward. So 1, back through the same for the increase. Increase in the next. So 1 and 2. And then one more. We're going to do a single. So again, let me just move my clip. Technically, if you don't want to use the clip, you don't have to. It's really not as important, especially when you're not doing rounds. In row 6, we're doing just 1 single crochet into each stitch. So again, your hook ended on the left, so you're going to flip your work. You want to have your hook over to the right, and now the inside here is facing us, so we are going to be going from front to back. So again, your stitch should have this band coming up through it. You're going to go back through that same stitch, front to back, and we're just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. So technically we really only have 5 stitches, so when we get to the end of this row, we're going to have to create our 6th stitch. So here's number 5, and then it looks like it may be a stitch on the side here. It's not actually a true stitch, but we are going to make it one. It's a little bit smaller and a little bit tighter, but you're going to push through. Looks like I got under the wrong loop. Make sure you just get under the top 2 loops there. Should be like a V shape, just like a regular stitch, and do a single crochet. So it's kind of like a false stitch, but we're turning it into a regular stitch. In row 7 you're going to need 6 bands, and once again it's just one single crochet into each stitch. Again, you're going to turn your work, so now the outside's facing you, which means now we have to go from back to front. So again, on the very end one, pushing under both loops, so it's one in each. And same thing as before, when we get to the end, we're going to have to kind of create our 6th stitch. And the reason is, every time you do a row, you lose a stitch. So that's why we're having to create that extra stitch. When you're crocheting with yarn, you can do something that's called a chain 1. A lot of times they say chain 1 and turn, but it doesn't really work out so well with rubber bands because it's too loose. So again, on the end here, go under this V. It's a little bit smaller and tighter. We're making that last stitch. In row 8 you need 7 bands, so it's going to be 3 singles, an increase, and then 2 singles. So you have turned your work, the hook's on the right. This time we're going front to back. Very end stitch. We're doing 3 singles. So we are just widening this out a little bit with 1 increase here. So that's going to come in your 4th stitch. And then 2 more singles. Again, in the very last one here, you're having to create your last stitch. And then move your clip. You'll need 7 bands for row 9, and we're doing 1 single crochet into each stitch. So your hook's on the right. This time we're going back to front. So this is going to have the same stitch count as the previous row. And there's actually only going to be 1 more row left after this. So again, when we get to the very last stitch here, we're going to have to create that. And we are going to do a slip stitch. So you're going under the 2 loops from the back. This time you're going to pull through everything, get the other end back on, and 1 through the other. In row 10, you're going to need 6 bands. The pattern is 2 singles, an increase, followed by 2 singles. So your hook is on the right, and you have the inside of the bunny facing you, and we're going to be going from front to back. Now, since we did a slip stitch in the last stitch, it's going to look a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to ignore this first stitch that you see your bands coming up through. We're going to the next one over. That's where we're going to start our first single crochet, a single into the next, and then right about the center here you're going to do your increase. And then you're going to do 2 singles. So it's going to be 1 shy of your last stitch where your clip is. So you can just remove that, put it on the band that's on your hook. So what that's done is just rounded out the bottom. Now if you notice that your bunny's curving inward, you just want to take a couple seconds and just try and straighten it out. I mean, don't really pull it. It's going to have a slight curve, but you want it to be most of the way flat. Next we're going to start the ears, so for that you'll need 10 bands, and we're going to make 2 chains of 5. So I'm going to have the inside facing me, and in the very center here we're going to leave 2 bands. So if you look here where the eyes are spaced, it's these 2 stitches that are in between the eyes that we're going to leave empty. So we're going to go to the one over here on the right and then the one over on the left. So I'll start over on the right here, push through from the inside, and I'm going to make a chain of 5. So you're just pulling through and getting the other end back on. And then what we're going to do is take a clip and we're going to attach it around these 2 loops. Then you're going to, as I said, skip 2. They should be right in the center, and we're going to go over to the left, and again we're going to make our second chain of 5. So this is just the first part of the ears. We're going to also do stitches around these chains. So we'll have one more step to do after this. Again, after you do 5 chains, take your clip and get those 2 loops secured. You'll need 26 bands to complete the ears. So again, you want the inside facing you, and we're going to go in the next stitch around here from where we attached the ears, where we did this chain on the right. So it's the next stitch, pushing from front to back. We're doing a single crochet, and then the next stitch is going to go straight through the chain. Make sure that's nice and straight. And then we're going to do 1 stitch into each chain here, 1 single crochet. That is until we get to the top. Again, make sure that your chain is always nice and straight and that you're going through front to back. So now where our clip is here, we're actually going to do 3 single crochets. So you can do your first one, and that will get it secure, so then we can remove our clip. And then we're going to do 2 more in that same chain. That's just going to help to bring it around the tip of the ear. If I can get it to go through there. So that's our second, and back through for the third. Now we're going to work our way back down the chain, doing 1 in each. And then we're going to be at the top of the head here, so we have these 2 stitches in between. So there's 1, 2, and then we're going to go up the other ear here. So in the bottom chain, again, just make sure it's straight. And same thing, we're going to do 1 in each until we get to the top. And if you hear noise in the background, that's actually just our heat pump going on. It's kind of chilly tonight. So just take off the clip. We did 1, we're going to do 2 more. And then 1 in each, going back down the other side of the chain. and then one more in the next stitch around here. That's actually connecting it to the head. And then your ears may be a little bit crinkled up, so you might have to do just a little bit of adjusting to make them nice and straight. And then you're just going to attach your clip. Now what you're going to do is to repeat all of these steps all over again, minus the eyes and the nose. So we're going to form the back half of the bunny. So you can pause here, and I will add the time to go back to if you feel like you need to follow along with the steps again, but make your second half, and then I will show you how to stitch it together. Once you have both pieces formed, we're going to stitch them together. So for that you're going to need approximately 50 rubber bands. Now I do have some stitch markers that I'm going to use to line up some of the stitches just to make the process go as smoothly as possible. So these are optional, but I do definitely find them very helpful. If you don't have these, you can use clips. It's a little harder to get the bands to all stay in a clip, which is why I do prefer the stitch markers, but really anything that you have that can hold the two sets of stitches against one another will be helpful. So you're going to take the inside pieces and you're going to line them up against one another. And I'm going to show you how to do two different types of stitches to put these together. So let me just show you quick what the difference is. The first way that I'm going to show you is going to turn out like this, where the stitches just keep going through one another and they sort of form a chain around the edge, and it looks the same on both sides, and you can see it kind of has this edge nice and flat. So I do kind of prefer the look of this, only it is definitely a little bit more challenging to do it this way. So I did come up with a little bit of an easier way, and I will show you what that looks like, and that's the way I'm actually going to do this one, but I'll show you both ways to start. And it turns out like this. So if you see what I chose for the front, I went through from front to back, and this made the edge a little bit more zigzaggy if you look on the front here. If you did this same concept but went through from back to front, it would look the opposite, and this is more of a, not so much of a zigzag look, but more of the bands just reaching around the side. So you can see it's a little bit more pointy here. It's not going to give you as flat of an edge as this way is. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to give you the instruction for both, and then you can choose whichever works best for you. So as I said, we're going to be lining up our pieces. So I'm going to start at the tip of the ears here, and you can see we have those two stitches in between the ears, so you know those are going to line up, and then every other stitch here along the way. So at the top here, I'm going to take my clip and I'm going to go through both sets of stitches, and you can just see visually if they're lining up. You have the two in between the ears, and then the next one, let's see, I have these two, and then looks like these two should line up, so I'm going to put another clip there, or stitch marker I should say, not clip. Make sure you're just going under the stitch itself, so you're going to have 4 loops on your clip or your stitch marker. And then coming down here, you can see here how we have this loose band. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'll go to the middle of the head here. So you can see where these line up. I'm going to go 1, 2, maybe to the second one here. And this isn't an exact science. You can just space these out wherever you like if you're using them. And then across the bottom here, going to put another one, and then I think on the other side here again I'll go to the second set of stitches and just mark that as well. So that's just going to help keep it in line. And now let me just show you the first way, the way that I showed you on the purple bunny. So I'm going to start on the right hand side, and I'm going to go right above where this loose band is. So I'm ignoring that. So it's this next stitch up, and I'm going to push through from the front, go under both sets of stitches. I'm going to take my first band, I'm going to pull through both of those stitches, and I'm going to use an additional stitch marker to just hold this other side of the band in place. So again, that isn't totally necessary. You could just pinch it in your fingers, but it's definitely more helpful that way. So then I'm going up to the next stitch, go straight through both. I'm getting this loose band back on my hook. I can remove my stitch marker. The next band is going to pull all the way through. So I find it helpful if you turn your hook the opposite direction to start to pull through, and then sort of twist it straight again, and then I twist it backwards again to go through the very last one. So you kind of just have to maneuver your hook around to try and get through there smoothly. Again, I'm going to use my stitch marker, but you could just hold this in your fingers, and you're going to move up to your next, go through both sets of stitches. Don't forget to get the other end back on your hook. So you can see every time that this band that came through, you're going to have one of each on the ends, and then your two stitches are going to be sandwiched in the middle. So that's what's going to give you that chain look. Again, I'm twisting it backwards and then sort of just working it around to get it all the way through. I'm going to reattach this, and then up to the next set. Again, get this, don't forget to do that, the one that's on your stitch marker, pull all the way through, and reattach. Again, up to the next. And sometimes you do get hung up where you don't want to, so it does take quite a bit of patience. So I'm going to just stop here and show you what it looks like. You can see you have this chain forming on the one side, chain forming on the other side, and it's pretty much flat together here on the side. So I would say that's the more challenging way to put it together, but visually I kind of like that way better. Now I'm going to show you the other way. Now I'm going to show you the other way that you can stitch this together, and through the magic of editing I did change the beginning part here, so now it's going to be all uniform. So remember, if you're going from front to back, it's going to look more zigzaggy on the front like this, and the way I'm going to show it is back to front, so it's going to look like this. So you're going to take your hook and go through both sets of stitches. Again, I'm going back to front. So you're going to have the 2 stitches plus 1 additional band always on your hook. You're going to pull through everything, get the other end back on your hook, and pull one through the other. So there's really no need to use that additional stitch marker or clip. Now for the next one here, I have these two already together, so let me just remove that since we don't need it anymore. And I'm going to the next one over, back to front, under both stitches. Remember, you're pulling through everything on your hook, get the other end back on, one through the other. Again, working my way around the side. Sometimes there are a little bit awkward angles that you have to go through. So pulling through everything on your hook, get the other end back on, one through the other. So I'm just going to continue in that pattern, and eventually we're going to have loose bands that we're going to have to work in, and I will show you how to do that. So let me just do one more here with you. Pulling through everything, back on, and one through the other. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you finish the rest of the ear part here on your own. So you go up and around, and eventually you're going to come to this loose band, and when you do get around to that part, I will show you how to work that band in. Now I've made my way around, and I'm at the stitch that's right before where my clip is. So I'm just going to go again back to front, go through both sets of stitches, pull through everything on my hook, and then do one through the other. And then here's my loose band. So what I'm going to do is actually going to ignore that, hold that out of the way for the moment. I'm going to go under the next stitch on the back. Then I'm going to grab this loose band, get that in the center, and then go through another band here on the front. It's actually the part here where the ear had connected on the head is where I'm going to go through. And you can just double check your stitches here. You can see I had lined this one up, we have the one above it, and then these would match up. So again, pull through everything. It's a little bit more difficult because we have that extra loop on our hook. So just make sure you get through everything. And then again, just continue down the head. So in the ears and the head, it's very definite what stitches you need to go through because you have these nice stitches on the edge. When you get down to the body section, that's going to be a little bit more uncertain as to where to go because we did the rows back and forth, so you're not going to have these nice stitches on the edge. So I'll show you that in a second here. So now we're down to the start. So if you notice, you should sort of be able to tell there's the bands that look like they wrap around the sides, but in between is kind of spaces for the rows. So you're just going to use your best guess here. So for example, right here looks like I can go through in between those bands. So that's going to be my first stitch on the body. Again, I'm going to jump down to the next row, sort of go in between those bands that wrap around the side. Probably going to do about 3 or 4 stitches total in the body section. So that was my second. And then here's my third. And eventually you're going to work your way down to where we have the stitches across the bottom. So again, we have this loose band we have to work in here. So I think what I'm going to do is grab it on this next one. So you can see I'm starting an actual stitch here, going across the bottom. And then I'm going to pick up this loose band. And technically, it's not really a stitch to go through. Maybe there is kind of like, I think maybe this was a slip stitch. It's a little bit smaller and tighter, but I will work my way through that. Again, as I said, it's not an exact science, so if you go through something that's not exactly where I'm going, as long as you don't have any gaps, it should work out. You can see this one is giving me a little difficulty to get through. Again, one through the other, And now it should be easier with the stitches lining up across the bottom. So I think I'm going to go ahead and let you do the bottom, and then I will show you when we get to the next loose band. Now I'm almost up to my loose band here. So you can see I've gone most of the way across the bottom. I have one more set of stitches here to go through. Sorry if this loose band is kind of getting in the way of your view here. So now, again, technically it's kind of like a slip stitch here. I don't know if you can tell on the back side. So I'm actually going to go through that. Again, it's kind of small and tight. I'm going to work my way through that, grab this loose band, and then I should have one more stitch across the bottom on the front piece. Again, you're going to have a lot of bands to maneuver through here, so just take your time. And one through the other. So then that brings us to the other side of the body. So once again, it's not going to be exactly obvious where you need to go, but just do your best. Look in between the rows. I think that's a little high up where my hook just went out. You can see that was connected. See where they were last connected. Try and get it to go pretty straight through. Sorry if my angles kind of keep changing. Just trying to hold the bunny so I can have the best maneuverability here with the way my wrist is bending. Again, straight across. So this is my second one through the body. I think I did 3 through the body on the other side. So I'll try to do the same on this side. And then that's going to bring us back to our stitches. But before I go any further, what I'm going to actually do is stop here, and I want to put some stuffing in the body. So let me just grab a clip and attach this. So as far as the stuffing goes, you're only going to need a very little bit. So I have just 2 little kind of balls here, and I'm going to put the first one in and push it down to the bottom in the body section. And then here's my next little section. I'm going to do the head. So you don't really want to stuff it too full, because it's really only just a small space. And you want to try and keep the stuffing away from the edges where your stitches are going to be. If you're using polyfil, it's a little bit of a pain. So I think that looks pretty good. So I'll just get my hook back through here. I can remove my clip. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just finish this off. So I have my stitches that are easy to tell now. And we do have one additional loose band that we're going to have to attach right at the end. So that's going to be pretty easy. I feel like I'm caught up on something here. There we go. So let's see, I have my second to last stitch here, so I'm going to go through the back, grab this loose band, take out my clip, go through the one on the front, again pull through everything, and one through the other. And then let's see if there's any space. I think that pretty well closed it off. So the last thing I want to do is just go through a stitch in the middle here. Maybe just through 1 or 2 stitches in the center. Take my very last band here, pull through everything, one through the other, make a nice and tight slip knot. And then I just need to reach up through here, and I'm going to grab this loop, pull it through to the back, and I'll just hide this rest of the end here inside. See, a tiny bit of stuffing tried to come out there. So if you need to do any maneuvering or adjusting to the ears or any of the sections, you can do that. And then your little bunny peep is complete. I hope that everyone loves their new Easter Bunny Peeps. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page. And please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, so that way you can be notified when I have new tutorials available. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram. So please feel free to post your pictures and comments there too. I love to see what everyone's creating, and feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!